Hi everyone, I'm Lena, the founder of Women Investors Club. And today I will explain how you can work on your finances with the help of the My Financial Health checklist. First, a little bit of the background of this document and how to use it. Many women, when they hear that this is My Financial Health checklist, expect that by filling in this checklist, they will get a diagnosis, that they will hear a word, my health is in good state or in bad state. Well, this is not how I developed this checklist. This checklist contains pretty much anything which comes into my mind around finance. So the work you should do with this paper is the following. First of all, the best way is to download it as a paper and to print it, to have a paper version of it. I'm still a little bit old-fashioned person who likes to work with paper, and I will explain why. Because this document is supposed to be your working document for the whole year. So you print it out, and first you go very quickly through the first two columns, yes and no, and you mark answers to the questions. Do I have a will? Yes or no? Do I need to update my current will? Yes or no? So you go very quickly through all yes and no's, and then you actually start thinking on all the no's, what is it for you? Is it a priority or not? Because you might have lots of different no's in this checklist, but you might not need anything here. So, and that's fine to have a no. But if you think that it is actually important, that this is actually a priority, then you should mark it as a priority. You can also differentiate between high priorities and low priorities because everything cannot be your high priority. So first you go through yes and no. Then you pick your priorities and you pick high priorities and low priorities. And then actually, finally, you write down an action you would like to do around these points. So if you don't have a will and you actually think it is a high priority, then write down next to it an action point. Well, start working on my will, or find a notary to sign my will. Talk to my friends how they did their will. So it make an action which is practical, which you could actually implement. Don't make it as a super big one that you cannot do anything about it because it's so big. All right? So I will go very quickly, point by point, and explain why some points I put here and what I mean with it. And yes, so the first point here is about will and inheritance. And it's not a pleasant subject, but it's an important subject and we all should think a little bit about it. So what I suggest that you consider, do you need a will yourself? So if you have a family, if you have children, then probably it's a good idea to have something on paper. Or maybe you have a will, it's very old and you need to update it. You need to change some things. Well, that's also something you could do. And then for every woman, and this is sometimes quite surprising, but the question is, do I know if my parents have a will? Yeah, because many parents, they say that, well, everything what we have, it will be yours one day. Well, this is very nice. This is very generous. But do you actually have a will? It's not a question which is easy to ask your parents, but it's a useful question. And it usually leads to very, very interesting conversation. And usually attendants of my course ask this question with less fear to their parents, and they hear different stories and it comes up to an interesting conversations. Because if your parents are leaving you an inheritance, it will have tax consequences for you. And that's in question number 4. Do I know enough about actually inheritance tax and potential consequences for myself and my children? And so these are all questions you could ask and you could investigate. Number two are debts. And here in this part, I want you to look at all the debts you have and write them down, understand what is your situation with the debt, and if this is something not clear, it should be as something very high on your priority list. Especially credit card debts, these are very expensive debts and you want to get rid of them as soon as possible. But if you have mortgage, if you're sharing mortgage with your partner, it's important to understand what could be potential consequences of this mortgage for you if you lose a job, if your partner loses a job, if you get a divorce, if something happens. So it is important to understand and to have it thought through. It doesn't mean that it will happen, but thinking about different scenarios is always very, very good. And that connects us with the next point, point number three, about insurances. Depending on the country, depending on our profession, insurance are more important or less important, but it's something to think about. Pension plans. And here, different question. Question number one is very, very broad one, but this is an important question and we'll always think about this question once we start Investment Accelerator. Am I clear on how I see my life upon retirement? And not many of us are really clear about it, and it's probably not always necessary, but again, it's a good thing to reflect upon when you have time. Do I know at which age I would like to retire? Well, that's probably important for everyone. And to understand how many more years you actually have left upon your retirement, because these are the years which you will use to build your wealth, which you want to use upon retirement. And depending on your age, you might have still long time, or maybe you have less time. So then maybe you should think better about your saving rate. Am I satisfied with my current pension provisions? And here, very often I hear that many women actually don't even know what are their current pension provisions. They might have some pension plan from their employer. They never actually looked at it. They never understood how it works. Well, this is your chance to put this as a high on your priority to actually understand what kind of pension provisions you have at this moment. Do you know what you accumulated so far? Where is all this money? Maybe you changed jobs many times. Maybe it's all spread out through different places. If you travel a lot abroad, that could be the case. Well, again, it's a good moment to put this on your priority and to look through all these pension plans, all these things, and collect them all at one place. Do I know how much money I expect in my current pension plans when I retire? Well, that's an interesting exercise and it's not an easy one. So maybe you can work on it while we progress on Investment Accelerator. Maybe you can do it later, but again, this is something to consider. And now we come to an important point, number 5, which is savings and budgeting. Do I know how much savings I have? Well, that's a basic question, and you should know how much savings you have. Am I satisfied with the size of my savings? Well, that's a more open and interesting question, and that one is probably requiring some analysis. What is your saving rate at the moment? How much money did you save last year as a percentage of your total income? So once you see it as a percentage, then maybe you can decide whether it's actually enough or not. You can also make some simple calculations. If you continue saving at this rate till your retirement age, how much money will you actually have close to your retirement? Does it look like enough to you. Or maybe you know that you will not be able to save money at this rate because today you're actually single and you don't really have many commitments. So maybe today is the moment to increase your savings even more, because in nearest future, when you have kids, you will not be able to afford so much savings. Do I have clear saving goals? Do I have an emergency fund? Do I receive income from my savings? All these questions are very good to reflect upon, to say yes or no first, and then to start thinking whether it's your priority to do something about it. Do I have a monthly budget for spending or saving? And if I have a budget, is it a useful tool which maximizes my savings? Because that also happens. We might have a budget, but we actually never look at it. It really doesn't help us with anything. It only makes us feel bad because we never actually do anything about it. Well, then maybe this is a moment to change your budgeting system, do something more simple, but something which you will use, which will help you save, and which will make you feel good about you and your finances. Do I manage to stay with my budget? That's important, and that kind of relates to the previous question. Is it a useful tool? Do I use it? Does it really help? And now the last part. Do I revisit my expenses regularly? Well, some of us do it a lot, some of us never do it. Well, maybe this is something you could put at an action point. And in fact, it's a quick win to go revisit your expenses, and you will be surprised how many unnecessary expenses, how many old subscriptions, how many financial garbage you accumulate, which you could clean up and have a quick win on savings. Taxes. Taxes are very important, and taxes is something which scares us, and taxes is something which we don't like to work on, to talk about, but there is actually nothing really difficult about it. You just need to plan some time to learn about taxes. You have to understand the local tax system, especially if you are traveling. It might not be easy, but it's actually just a matter of time and intention to do something about it. So understand how the tax system works, understand how much tax you are currently paying, and make sure you're not paying too much tax. All of these questions in principle are available always on the internet, and all these questions can be answered by the tax authorities if you call or go there and discuss it. We usually start looking for a tax advisor, but you don't need to start with a tax advisor. You can start with tax authorities, asking them questions, and you'll be surprised how helpful they are normally. Make sure you prepare these questions in advance and you ask them in a calm way. If you don't understand, then repeat the question, give them examples, and ask them to explain it to you based on your example. That usually works much better. And if you get online a person which seems unfriendly, which kind of overwhelms you and don't understand, well, just hang up, call again, you'll get another person, and you have another chance to ask all your questions. Or actually, if you get the answers, make another call and make sure you understood all the answers correctly. Finally, small thing, banking. Look at your current banking arrangements. You are not married to your bank. If it doesn't fit your requirements, if you don't like them, well, just change the bank. It's a little bit painful, but it's not so difficult. Or renegotiate your current banking conditions. Banks are easy to negotiate with. It's a business, they want to earn money, so the moment you kind of want to move out, they want to keep you, they will offer you better conditions. If they don't, well, then you're free to look at somewhere else, or you're free to ask something extra. So, but don't be afraid of banks and try to negotiate things with them, especially credit card fees. Credit card fees are negotiable. lots of things around credit cards are actually easy to negotiate once you have a courage. And finally, very important, number 9, investing. Do I have clear investing goals? Am I satisfied with my current return on investment? And this is something we are looking at in the Investment Accelerator course. So if both of these are no, then you might want to consider Investment Accelerator. And if you're already there, then we will be working on it, so don't worry. Now, once you feel everything, you have your actions, put your highest priority actions for the first quarter or second quarter or third quarter or whatever quarter of 2022 we are now, and start working on it. I hope you found this document useful, and I look forward to see you at any of my events or at Investment Accelerator.